Last month, France reported roughly 1,000 excess deaths during a brutal heat wave, and health officials said most of them were people 65 and older. In the United States, millions of people regularly fall under National Weather Service heat alerts during dangerous stretches of summer. And here is the part almost nobody says out loud. A lot of people who die in extreme heat do not die outside. They are not running marathons. They are not working on rooftops. They are not stranded in the desert. Many of them die at home, sitting in a chair in a room that felt only a little too warm, doing what they have done every summer for years, with a fan blowing a few feet away and the quiet belief that if they were really in danger, surely they would feel it. Al Jazeera CDC. Because somewhere after 60, whether anyone warns you or not, your body loses part of its ability to cool itself. Not all at once. Not dramatically. Quietly. Gradually. Enough that a hot day that once felt annoying can now become dangerous far faster than you realize. And the reason this catches so many people off guard is simple. No one sits them down and says, "Listen, the rules changed. What worked at 40 may not protect you at 70. So people trust the habits they have always trusted. They tough it out. They wait until they feel thirsty. They rely on a fan. They assume heat is mainly an outdoor problem. And that false sense of familiarity is exactly what turns ordinary hot weather into an emergency. I'm Dr. John Myers. Over the years, I've cared for many patients who believed heat was somebody else's problem. Something that happens to athletes, construction workers, people who spend all afternoon in the sun, not to a retired man in his own living room, not to a grandmother folding laundry in a warm bedroom, not to someone sitting quietly at home watching television. But that belief is one of the most dangerous misunderstandings older adults carry into the summer. Because there are 5 mistakes that turn a hot spell into a medical crisis. And a couple of them are things you may be doing right now, completely convinced they are helping. Before you click away because you think you already know the basics, stay with me. This is not just drink water and stay cool. The details matter. One wrong assumption is often the difference between a miserable afternoon and an ambulance ride. By the end of this, you will know all 5 mistakes, why they become more dangerous after 60, which ones may apply to you, and exactly what to do instead starting today. And before I go one step further, let me say one quick thing, because it is the reason I make these videos in the first place. Heat safety matters on its own, but it is also part of something much bigger. The quiet, daily habits that decide whether you stay strong, sharp, mobile, and independent into your 70s and 80s, or whether life starts narrowing much earlier than it has to. The little choices most people ignore are often the ones that shape how well you age. I took the advice I repeat most often to my own patients and put it into one simple plan. If you want that, the link is right there on your screen. You do not need to scramble for a pen, and I am not about to make you sit through me reading out a long web address. Now let's start with the one idea that ties all 5 of these mistakes together, because once you understand this, everything else makes sense. Your body has a built-in cooling system. When you get too warm, 2 major things are supposed to happen. First, your heart pushes more blood toward the surface of your skin, where heat can escape into the air. Second, you sweat. And when that sweat evaporates, it carries heat away from your body. It is an elegant system. For most of your life, it works so well that you rarely think about it at all. But aging changes that system in several quiet ways. Older adults often sweat less, and they often start sweating later. That means one of the body's main escape valves for heat does not kick in as strongly or as quickly as it used to. On top of that, thirst tends to become less reliable with age. So does your sense of just how hot you really are, and the heart itself may have a harder time handling the extra workload required to move more blood to the skin, especially if you already live with high blood pressure, heart disease, or take medications that blunt that response. None of this means you are weak. None of it means you are fragile. It simply means the margin for error is smaller than it used to be, and that smaller margin is what makes ordinary heat more dangerous after 60. Medline Plus Magazine CDC. There is one more piece that matters, and it hides behind the weather forecast in a way many people never fully appreciate: humidity. Most people look at the day's temperature and decide from that number alone whether they need to be careful. But the plain temperature does not tell the whole story. Your body cools itself mainly by evaporating sweat. When the air is dry, that process works better. When the air is already full of moisture, sweat cannot evaporate well. It just sits on the skin or drips off, and your body loses one of its best cooling tools. That is why 90 degrees in a dry climate and 90 degrees in a sticky, humid climate are two very different experiences for the human body. This is also why heat index matters so much. The heat index reflects how hot conditions actually feel to your body when temperature and humidity are combined. And when you are deciding how cautious to be, that is the number you should pay attention to, not just the air temperature by itself. The National Weather Service now emphasizes tools like heat risk for this exact reason. Danger is about more than a single number on the thermometer. Weather.gov. So as I walk you through these 5 mistakes, keep one question in your mind. Is this helping my body get rid of heat, or is it quietly sabotaging a cooling system that is already running on a smaller safety margin than it used to? That question brings us to mistake number 1. Mistake number 1 is trusting a fan to keep you safe. I know why people do this. A fan feels like relief. The air moves. Your skin feels cooler. It seems obvious that if air is blowing across you, you must be safer. And in mild heat, a fan can help. When sweat is present and the air is not excessively hot, moving air can improve evaporation and make you feel better. But there is a point where a fan stops being protection and starts becoming a false comfort. The CDC warns that fans should only be used as a cooling strategy if indoor temperatures are below 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Above that, a fan can actually increase body temperature. That is the part people do not know. Once the air itself is too hot, the fan may simply be blowing hot air across your skin. Instead of helping your body shed heat, it can add to the heat load. And because moving air feels pleasant, it can fool you into thinking you are okay while your core temperature keeps rising. CDC. That is why so many tragic stories share the same small detail. The person was found indoors, overheated, with the fan still running. They were not doing something reckless, they were doing what had always worked before. They just did not know there was a threshold where the rules changed. So what should you do instead? If the heat is genuinely dangerous, a fan alone is not enough. The strongest protection is air conditioning, and the CDC is very clear that using air conditioning or spending even part of the day in an air-conditioned place can significantly reduce risk. If you have air conditioning, use it on the hottest days. This is not the time to play hero with the electric bill. Your life, your heart, your kidneys, and your brain are worth more than a lower utility statement. If you do not have air conditioning at home, go where there is some. A cooling center, a library, a senior center, a shopping mall, a grocery store, a friend's house. Even a few hours in a truly cool environment can give your body a chance to recover. cdcweather.gov. Now, if you are using a fan, make it work better. Wet your skin first. A cool damp cloth on the back of your neck. A spray bottle, a cool shower, a cool bath. Even dampening your arms and legs helps. Give the moving air something to evaporate. A fan moving across dry skin in a very warm room is weak protection. A fan moving across damp skin is more useful because it helps heat leave the body. And do not underestimate how effective a cool shower or bath can be. People often think of drinking something cold first, but bringing down body temperature from the outside can work faster. Loose, light-colored, breathable clothing helps too, because it lets heat escape and allows what sweat you do produce to evaporate more easily. On the hottest days, some of the simplest actions are the best ones. Cool shower in the morning, blinds closed before the sun starts baking the room, light clothes, cool air when possible, and never trusting a fan to do the job of an air conditioner. Now let's move to mistake number 2, and this one is incredibly important because it is mostly invisible. Mistake number 2 is forgetting that your medications may change how you handle heat. This is where aging changes the picture fast. By the time people are in their 60s, 70s, and beyond, many are taking at least one prescription medication every day, often more than one, and several very common medications interfere directly with the body systems that are supposed to protect you in hot weather. Let me be specific, because vague warnings are not enough. Diuretics, sometimes called water pills, are one major example. These are commonly prescribed for blood pressure, swelling, and heart conditions. Their job is to help the body get rid of extra fluid. That is useful and often necessary. But in hot weather, when you may also be losing more water through sweat, that same effect can push you toward dehydration faster than you expect. Beta blockers are another important group. The CDC includes them among medications that can increase heat risk. These medications can blunt some of the cardiovascular response your body relies on in the heat. In simple terms, they may make it harder for your body to move blood efficiently toward the skin to dump heat, CDC. Then there are medications with anticholinergic effects. This is a category many people have never heard of, even though they may be taking one. These can include some bladder medications, some antidepressants, and some over-the-counter allergy and sleep medicines, especially products like diphenhydramine. Why does that matter? Because anticholinergic medications can reduce sweating. And if sweating is one of your main cooling tools, reducing it during a heat wave is not a small thing. It can meaningfully raise your risk. CDC. Now hear me carefully on this next point, because it may be the most important sentence in this whole section. Do not stop or skip your medication on your own because it is hot outside. That can be far more dangerous than the heat itself. A blood pressure medication, heart medication, or fluid pill is not something you casually abandon in your kitchen because the forecast looks ugly. The right response is not to stop treatment. The right response is to understand your risk and plan ahead. What should that planning look like? Before the next serious hot spell, call your doctor's office or talk to your pharmacist and ask one plain, high-value question. Which of my medications affect how I handle heat? And is there anything I should do differently on very hot days? That conversation takes 5 minutes. Most people never have it, and yet it may be one of the smartest health conversations of the summer. The CDC's clinician guidance says medication dose or timing adjustments may sometimes be considered during hot weather, but those decisions need to be individualized. They depend on your diagnoses, your kidney function, your blood pressure, your heart, your fluid status, and the specific drug. In other words, the person who should make that decision is your clinician, not fear, not guesswork, and not a YouTube video. And if this is helping you so far, let me pause for just a second and ask a quick favor. Subscribe, tap like, and leave a comment telling me where you are watching from and how hot it has gotten where you live this week. I really do read those comments, and they help shape what I make next. Now, mistake number 3. Mistake number 3 is waiting until you feel thirsty to drink. For most of adulthood, thirst feels like a reliable built-in alarm. Your body needs water, you feel thirsty, you drink something, and the problem gets solved. But aging changes that alarm system. Older adults often become less aware of thirst, and the body also becomes less efficient at retaining fluid. That means you can be getting drier without feeling a strong urge to drink. This is one of the reasons dehydration sneaks up on older adults so often. Medline Plus Magazine. Now add summer heat to that. Add a diuretic. Add an afternoon in a stuffy room. Add a little bit of sweating. Suddenly you are not just mildly low on fluids, you are behind in a way that puts real stress on your body. And dehydration is not a trivial inconvenience. It makes your blood volume drop. It can lower blood pressure. It can make you lightheaded. It can thicken the strain on the heart and kidneys. It can increase the chance of dizziness, weakness, confusion, and falls. And the worst part is that many people do not notice it until they are already playing catch-up. By the time you feel parched on a dangerous hot day, you may already be well behind. So the rule after 60 is this: do not drink only by thirst. Drink by habit. Keep water within arm's reach. Sip steadily through the day. Not all at once. Not one giant glass after you have been sitting dry for hours. Steady intake works better. The CDC recommends drinking throughout the day, and even suggests checking your urine color as a practical gauge. If your urine is light yellow or close to clear, that is usually a good sign. If it is dark and concentrated, your body is telling you are behind. CDC. Now, people always want an exact number. The truth is, there is no perfect one-size-fits-all number because body size, medications, activity, climate, kidney function, and heart function all matter. But as a simple practical rhythm, many people do well when they aim to drink regularly across the day rather than waiting for thirst. Think in terms of frequent sips and routine glasses, especially if you are indoors without strong cooling or spending any time outside. There is one important exception. If your doctor has specifically told you to limit fluids because of heart failure, severe kidney disease, or another condition, that instruction wins, always. In that case, your hydration plan needs to be individualized. But for everyone else, steady water intake during a heat wave is not optional. It is protective. And if you are sweating heavily for hours, plain water may not be the whole story. You also lose salt and other electrolytes. That is where a balanced drink, a little juice, or a salty snack may help. This does not mean you need to drown yourself in sports drinks all day. It just means that heavy, sustained sweating changes what your body is losing. One more trap here, because it catches people at backyard cookouts and on porches every summer. Alcohol and too much caffeine can work against you. The CDC advises limiting both in the heat. That does not mean you can never have coffee or a beer again. It means be smarter about timing, amount, and balance. If it is brutally hot, do not stack several dehydrating drinks into a day when your body is already struggling to keep its fluid balance where it needs to be. CDC. Now we come to mistake number 4, and this one may be the most heartbreaking of all. Mistake number 4 is trusting your body to tell you when your home has become dangerous. This is where many deaths happen. Because when thirst is duller, when your temperature awareness is less sharp, and when heat builds gradually over hours, your internal warning system becomes less dependable than you think. A house does not usually become dangerous all at once. It warms slowly. 1 degree, then another, then another. You adapt to it moment by moment. By late afternoon, you may feel a little tired, maybe a little off, maybe a little foggy, but not frightened, not alarmed, not something is terribly wrong. And yet the room around you may already be hotter than your body can safely handle for long. That is why so many heat deaths occur indoors. Not because people were careless, but because the danger did not feel dramatic. It felt tolerable right up until it wasn't. The National Weather Service and CDC both emphasize checking on vulnerable people, using air conditioning, staying hydrated, and not trying to tough it out. And this matters especially for older adults, people living alone, and people with chronic illness. Weather.gov CDC. Let me tell you about a man I'll call Frank. Frank is a composite, but every part of him comes from real patterns I have seen. He was 78, lived alone, proud of his independence, sharp, capable, determined not to make a fuss. He took a water pill and a beta blocker. He grew up in a house without air conditioning and never liked the idea of running it all day. Said it cost too much. Said the fan was enough. Said he had handled hotter summers before. So on the hottest days, Frank cracked a window, pulled the curtains halfway, sat in his chair, and ran a fan. He did not think he was in danger. He thought he was being practical. But what Frank could not feel was how everything was stacking against him. The room was getting hotter. The fan was moving warm air. His water pill was making dehydration easier. His beta blocker was limiting part of the body's heat response. His age had already turned down the alarms that once would have told him to act sooner. And because he did not feel panicked, he did not call anyone. He told himself he was just tired, just uncomfortable, just getting older. That is how heat wins. Not always through drama, often through quiet delay. So the fix here is simple, but it requires a mindset shift. Stop trusting "I feel okay" as your main test. Trust a number. Put a thermometer in the room where you spend the most time. Look at it. Know what the room is actually doing. If the indoor temperature is climbing into the mid-80s and especially beyond that, and there is no meaningful cooling, do not sit there waiting to feel worse. Take action early. Move to the coolest part of the house. Go downstairs if you have more than one level because heat rises. Close blinds and curtains before the afternoon sun heats the room. Avoid using the oven if you can. Get out of the house for a few hours if that is what it takes. Go where the air is cooler and let your body recover. Also, plan your day around the heat. If you need to walk, do it early. If you need to garden, do it early or late. The middle of the day, roughly 10 in the morning through 4 in the afternoon, is often the most punishing stretch. This is not the time for errands, yard work, or proving something to yourself. And then set up one of the most powerful protections there is, a buddy system. If you live alone, arrange for one person to check on you every day during a heat wave. Not if they remember. Not if things get bad. Every day. A daughter, a son, a neighbor, a church friend. Someone who will call, text, or ideally knock on the door. And do the same for someone else if you can. That one habit saves lives, because it catches the moment when someone is no longer thinking clearly enough to protect themselves. Weather. And that brings us to the 5th and most important mistake of all. Mistake number 5 is not knowing the difference between being overheated and being in a true medical emergency. Because there are really 2 stages here, and families miss the line between them all the time. The first stage is heat exhaustion. Think of this as your body raising a red flag. The signs can include heavy sweating, cool or clammy skin, weakness, dizziness, nausea, headache, muscle cramps, and a pulse that feels fast but weak. This is serious, but if you catch it here, you can often reverse it quickly. Get out of the heat, move into cool air or shade, lie down, loosen clothing, sip cool water if the person is awake and thinking clearly. Put cool, wet cloths on the skin. Focus on the neck, armpits, and groin where large blood vessels run close to the surface. This is the stage where action works beautifully if you do not ignore it. cdcweather.gov. But if heat exhaustion is missed, dismissed, or allowed to keep progressing, it can tip into heat stroke. Heat stroke is not feeling very hot. It is not needing to lie down for a while. It is a genuine medical emergency. The CDC describes it as a condition in which the body's temperature rises dangerously, often to around 104 degrees Fahrenheit or higher, and the cooling system fails. CDC. Here are the signs that should scare you into immediate action. Confusion, slurred speech, disorientation, behavior that does not make sense, hot skin that may be dry because sweating has failed, a rapid pounding pulse, fainting, collapse, or loss of consciousness. Let me emphasize the most important one: confusion. If an older adult in a heat wave is suddenly not making sense, acting strangely, mumbling, staring, drifting, or saying odd things, do not brush that off as fatigue. Do not call it just age. Do not wait to see whether they perk up later. In the setting of serious heat, confusion is a flashing red light. It can be the sign that the brain is already being affected. And at that point, every minute matters. If you see signs of heat stroke, call 911 immediately. While help is on the way, start cooling the person from the outside. Get them into a cooler place. Remove excess clothing. Apply cold, wet cloths or ice packs to the neck, armpits, and groin. If possible, use a cool shower or bath. The goal is to lower body temperature fast. Those first minutes matter because heat stroke does not just make you miserable, it can injure the brain, heart, kidneys, and other organs with frightening speed. CDC. One crucial caution: if the person is confused, drowsy, or unconscious, do not try to force water into their mouth. People mean well when they do this, but a confused or semi-conscious person can choke. Cooling from the outside is what you do immediately. Emergency responders can handle fluids safely when they arrive. And this is where Frank's story turns. Frank got lucky. And the luck had a name: his neighbor. She had made a habit of checking on him during that hot week, just a quick stop in the evening to make sure he was all right. One day he did not answer the door the way he usually did. When she looked in, he was slumped in his chair. Awake but confused, hot to the touch, dry skin, mumbling, not making sense. Now imagine if she had not known that confusion in the heat is an emergency. Imagine if she had said, "He's probably just tired. I'll come back tomorrow." That is how people die. Instead, she called 911. She got cool, wet towels under his arms and around his neck while she waited. The paramedics continued cooling him on the way to the hospital. Frank spent 2 days there with heat stroke, and the doctor later told his family that another hour alone in that chair might very well have killed him. Frank is fine now. He runs the air conditioning on hot days without another word about the bill, and his neighbor still checks in. He lived because one person recognized one sign and acted without delay. That is the whole reason I am making this video. So let me put the 5 mistakes together as simply as I can. First, do not trust a fan alone in serious heat. If indoor temperatures are above 90, a fan can actually make things worse. Use air conditioning if you have it. Go somewhere with air conditioning if you do not. Wet your skin if you are using a fan. CDC. Second, know your medications. Diuretics, beta blockers, and medications with anticholinergic effects can make heat more dangerous. Ask your doctor or pharmacist what applies to you, and never stop a medication on your own. CDC. Third, do not wait until you feel thirsty. Drink steadily through the day. Keep water close. Check your urine color. Stay ahead instead of trying to catch up. CDC Medline Plus magazine. Fourth, do not trust the feeling that you are fine. Trust a thermometer, trust your plan, trust the person checking on you. Close the blinds, avoid the hottest hours, use the coolest room, and have someone look in every day during a heat wave. Weather.gov. Fifth, learn the signs of heat stroke: confusion, hot skin, collapse, strange behavior, fainting. If you see them, call 911 and start cooling immediately. Minutes matter. CDC. None of these steps are glamorous. None of them are expensive. Most of them are simple enough to start today, but each one gives you leverage. Each one helps your body do what it is already struggling hard